1. This is really petty, and not recent at all, but considering I'm not in the area anymore and time has passed, I thought I'd share it. I was badly bullied in secondary school. I was a chubby kid and the target of a lot of bullying for the year I was at this particular school, especially from one girl, Laura. She was beyond cruel. I won't go into detail, but she and her friends made my life hell, and I ended up suffering a nervous breakdown and having to leave that school. A few years ago, I saw an ad for a beauty salon that was having a sale on nail treatments. I went onto the website and saw Laura's face on the frontage. I instantly felt my stomach drop, having not seen her for years, and decided that I was going to get some petty revenge. I made a second email with a generic fake name, Sarah, and left a review. I said something along the lines that Laura was unprofessional, the nails were awful, and I wouldn't recommend this place to a friend. I was a lot younger then and knew it felt petty because it was, but I didn't care, it mostly felt good. I thought nothing more of it until a few days later, a post from someone called Sarah came up on our local Facebook page. Turns out that Sarah was an ex-employee of Laura's, who had not been treated well, no surprise, and had been accused of leaving the review as I had unknowingly used the same name. I guess this was a tipping point for Sarah, and her post was a list of Laura's wrongdoings. The abuse she had received working under her, the training and insurance the salon didn't have, and staff not being paid properly. I honestly can't remember it all, there was a lot in there. My eyes were wide reading it. She aired everything out, and it must have taken a lot of courage. I felt terrible for Sarah. But she didn't seem to care about the review, more she wanted to get all this off her chest. I was anxious about the comments, but it turns out a lot of people had been treated badly by Laura over the years. And it became a story session of people airing their grievances. There were some comments that said they liked the beauty treatments they received, but it was mostly negative. Admin of the group removed the post, but it had already been seen by a lot of people at that point and the damage had been done. Laura made her socials private and never publicly addressed anything that I saw. I know it's silly and not particularly thrilling, her business didn't close, but it now has a negative reputation with some. And if you ask locals for a good place to go, they tend to point you in the direction of the beauty salon in the next village over. And that's a little bit of petty revenge for me. 2. So before I start this story, I need to give some background on my current job and terrible boss. I work at an answering service. It's a company that handles the phones for several companies like plumbing companies, construction companies, and a few others. We handle the phones and take messages for them, and page and text them out to the people working. Onto how terrible my boss is. She is absolutely a greedy, horrible person who has no shame about it. She owns the answering service and also owns 5 other houses, one of which she rents out to someone. The office for the company is in shambles. The carpet was ruined from being walked on with years of no upkeep. The walls have holes in them, and the computers and equipment are incredibly old. I'm talking about some of the phones are still using 2000 old. She only has barely enough computers working for the employees to work on. There's maybe 10 or 12 old computers stacked up in a corner that don't work anymore. She also treats the employees terribly. We will have 10 to 15 calls coming in at a busy time, and one employee working, and she won't lift a finger to help. She'll just tell the employee to hurry up and yell at them when they can't handle the workload. Earlier this week, the computer at my station stopped working. I'm pretty sure it can be fixed, but my boss doesn't want to get it fixed. So instead of getting it fixed, she told me to go work out one of her houses with a computer that has the necessary programs and equipment. The house she wanted me to go to is actually about 10 minutes closer to where I live, compared to where the office is, so whatever, I didn't make a big deal about it. She had me sign a non-disclosure form to not tell anyone about her house, and included that I was not allowed to touch anything in the house. I was only allowed to touch the equipment that involved work. Again, I just thought, whatever. She just signed it. So into my story. I'm sitting at the desk earlier this week, and it was super slow, so I was reading a book. Then I noticed her cat coming in from the doggy door, with a dead bird in her mouth. So I call my boss, and the call goes like this. Hey, so your cat just walked in, and it had...
Don't you fucking dare touch my cat.
But the cat...
If you touch my cat, I will fire you, you hear me?
Yeah, all right. Then I hung up. And I did absolutely jack shit about it. On my way out, I glanced down the hallway and saw a pile of feathers and bird parts all over her bed, which I laughed so hard about. I'm finishing up school in the next couple of months, so I'm biting the bullet and finishing off before I quit, since I don't want to find a part-time job for a month. But when I quit, you bet I'm going to tell someone about the work violations. 3. A little backstory. I had a friend who worked as a processor for a small mortgage company. Small in that they had around 15 offices scattered throughout North Carolina. She found another job and put in her 2 weeks' notice. The person they hired to replace her quit 2 days before her 2 weeks were up, so her office was in a bind. In walks me. My friend told her boss that she knew someone who could do the job and that since she was friends with this person, she would be willing to train her after hours and on weekends, plus, if possible, taking calls during the week. That take calls during the week is important, so I was hired. The manager wasn't too happy about it, as I had no actual experience in an office setting, just college knowledge. But as long as my friend would help me, she said okay. But because of this, whenever I would ask my boss a question, she would immediately get upset and tell me to call my friend, even for simple things like, where do we keep the stamps? Please keep in mind that this was the early 90s and all our computer systems are DOS-based. And quite difficult to master. The number one mortgage software at that time was a system called Contour, which was pretty non-user-friendly for such a costly program. I was trained that if an issue came up, I was to fix it myself and not to contact Contour. I was given a list of common errors and how to fix them. I'm on my 4th day, and an error pops up on the screen that I had never seen before and is not on my list. It states I am to call this 800 number and speak with a Contour technician to help clear it. I immediately call my friend, but she is not available right then as she is going through her own training. So I go to my boss, she tells me to call my friend, I tell her I tried, and she can't talk right now. She gets mad and starts swearing that she knew hiring me was a bad idea. I asked if there was anyone else I could talk to, and she said,
Just call IT.
I reiterated to her I was told not to call Contour. She says call IT, so I did. The Contour technician was a sweetheart and walked me through how to fix the problem. To help in future, the technician asked me to print a diagnostic page and fax it to him so that he could see if there were any other problems, being as I was new to the system, so I did. He thanked me and told me he didn't see any other issues but to call him if I had any more problems. Cue the next day. My boss called me into her office and was livid. According to her, I had just caused the office to have to pay $30,000 in licensing fees. It appeared the company had only bought 4 copies of the Contour program, but had installed it on way over 4 computers. My faxing the diagnostic page let the cat out of the bag, but since she told me to call IT and the fact that firing me for exposing the company doing something illegal would also be illegal, all she could do was rage at me. She then called my friend and raged at her. From then on out, I refused to call my friend if I had any questions and just bugged my boss. She never did fire me, and towards the end, we became, if not friends, not enemies, until the company closed under mysterious circumstances a few years later. And some clarification before I go. When I started, there was no IT division. They had one guy in corporate who either mailed you hardware or authorized you to buy it yourself. I had to install any new software from floppies. Any problems were figured out by trial and error or calling someone. I developed, after that first disastrous week, lifelines with other processors in other branch offices. They eventually set up an IT department. In the mortgage industry, processors are the ones who gather all the documents from borrowers and print needed loan documentation. This company took it a step further by having the processors also act as a receptionist and general office gopher. I did all the purchasing of office supplies, ran loan packages to attorneys' offices, processed loans for 8 loan officers, played administrative assistant to the manager, processed payments from customers, and on occasion, marriage counselor to my boss and her husband, our regional manager. It was a tough place to work, but the pay was really good. 4. I went to college in this big multi-campus system all over my country that holds an annual songwriting and performing contest. As a guitar player, I won several prizes and enjoyed 4 years of stardom in our college music circuit. I graduated and life went on until some 7 years later when the college contacted me and my old band, to ask us for a special concert to commemorate some big anniversary of the contest. We happily obliged and spent like a month rehearsing and having fun. After that, we decided that it had been so much fun that we would rehearse every Saturday, new songs, and eventually we'd put up a show. So we started doing it in our keyboard player's house because he had this huge rehearsal room. But after graduating, keyboard player became a born-again Christian. Had this huge worship band and everything in his life which was worship-oriented. One day, his Christian bandmates came to our rehearsal, and they took over the instruments while we were taking a rest and started playing some worship tunes. They projected the lyrics with the chords on the screen, and since their guitar player wasn't there, I started following them and playing along. Their leader, a hell of a singer and pianist, had written a song, and when it ended, he told me I had made the song feel better than ever, and that I had been a blessing to play with. I am an outspoken atheist, but I've learned to live and let live, so I kept my big mouth shut, told him the pleasure was mutual, and kept on enjoying every rehearsal, playing with my friends and having lots of fun. In fact, I was having too much fun because one day I came for rehearsal and found out I had been told the wrong schedule to arrive an hour earlier because the keyboard player wanted to speak with me. He told me that when you're playing in the congregation, you're just the channel through which God manifests himself. So the applause and all the recognition are for him, not for you as a musician. And I was being disrespectful to that because I was dancing, headbanging, jumping around, and making rock star poses while playing overly complicated solos. So I was an attention whore, wanting the spotlight on me and not recognizing that it was God manifesting through my playing. I was dumbfounded and choosing my words very carefully, aiming to kill, to be honest, when he decided to go on with the next point in his agenda. I'm telling you all of this because in 2 months there will be this huge event in which there will be Christian bands from all over America, the whole continent, and we'd love for you to come play with us because our guitar player, while decent enough, can't make the guitar sing as beautifully as you do. His words, not mine. I looked at him straight in the eye and said, "My man, you have the guitar player your God has chosen to manifest itself through with your band. Don't shun him, because then you'd be disrespecting your God's will. You certainly don't want an egocentric shredder playing along with you selfless folks." Got up, packed my gear, and have never seen him again. 5. The story began last week when I quickly went into the local German grocery chain store, rhymes with Schmaldi, for the curious among you, to pick up a pork belly for dinner that night. I quickly take it to the register, thank the nice young lady who allowed me to go ahead of her in the queue, and wait for the customer ahead to finish paying for their groceries. This is where we meet our nemesis working the register, an employee I will refer to as Corporal Bitchface. A name I am not proud of coming up with reflexively, but unfortunately apt. Think you're a stereotypical mid-50s Karen, with a classic haircut, glasses, sour lemon pucker combo. Unfortunately, she would have the attitude to match. The corporal starts tapping the conveyor belt with all her fury and the force of a woman who has probably seen a divorce or 3, and tells me I need to put the pork belly down before she can scan it. My plan was to just hand it to her like a normal human being. Clearly, this was not part of the corporal's internal programming, as of this current build. I was more confused than anything at this point, so I complied. Pork onto conveyor, you got it, lady. Now, I had not anticipated that the corporal was so well versed in the ways of the all-important checkout belt. She proceeded to try to lecture me on why it was very important to place the groceries on said conveyor belt. Something to do with the automatic sensors stopping when there is an item. And what would happen if I didn't place my item there forthwith? You know how someone will explain something to you with a statement, pause just long enough, and then re-explain it using different wording to get their point across in a condescending way? This is what happened for the next 5 sentences out of the corporal's Zeman hole. Not sure exactly what words she used, I kind of zoned in and out between sentence 3 and 4. Once it was clear that the well-rehearsed shower speech was complete, I decided that the fish was not getting off the hook that easily. I clapped my hands together and excitedly asked, Ooh, then what would happen? The corporal, with all the disdain and authority she could muster from her hairspray-affected lungs, retorted loudly and snarkily,
Then I would send you to the back of the queue.
Beep. The deathly silence and stare that followed after I cut the corporal off mid-speech, with the sound of contactless payment going through, was something I will cherish for the rest of the next few weeks. It was beautiful. It was petty and satisfying, but it wasn't over. She was not happy. She had one final attempt to try to exert her authority over me, the lowly customer in front of her. One last knockout punch to put me firmly in my place as she angrily handed me my receipt. She uttered through gritted teeth,
Next time, place the items down like you're told.
I laughed a bit, saluted toward the colonel, and replied, Ma'am, yes, ma'am. Thanked the young lady in line again for letting me go ahead of her, and gave the corporal a quizzical raise of the eyebrow, the Rock would have been proud of me, before marching off like a good soldier. I didn't stick around for the response because cool guys don't look at explosions. In hindsight, it was very petty and probably unnecessary. I just wanted to pork in peace. No need to be a dick about it. Still, you came here for some petty, so there you have it. The next time I was there, she was carrying on in the same way with other customers. I explained the preceding events to another cashier within earshot and confirmed that there was no conveyor belt policy. I took satisfaction in that, as there was no real revenge other than the corporal looking like she ate a second lemon while overhearing it all and stopping her behavior. Be nice to retail workers and service industry workers whenever you can. They get enough stress and abuse as it is. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 257. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do press the like button. Okay. What day is this? I don't know, it doesn't matter. Time is irrelevant. Right, so set up in the new office now, technically. I don't like it. I don't like it because the sound is different, and it's different in a way I can do nothing to fix right now. The wall panels are up. It's not echoey completely, but it's more echoey than I'm comfortable with. The ceiling is going to have something done to it. I'm going to probably have to get foam to put on the gaps in the walls. And the door will have to be covered over in some way as well, so it's delightful. It's a new environment. It's going to take time to get it sorted, so we'll see what happens with that. Okay, and let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, do you feel that big holidays like Christmas, New Year, or Thanksgiving as well, if you're in the US, are too close together? Do you think it'd be better to have Christmas time in the middle of the year? Speaking personally, I wouldn't mind it if they moved it to the middle of the year, because it can be very financially and emotionally draining having such big celebrations at the end of the year. So yeah, why not move Christmas or move New Year? We'll start New Year in the middle of the year. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.